Hey there! My name is Corinne O'Flynn, and you're listening to the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I am a USA Today bestselling author, nonprofit executive, and organizing nerd with over 20 years' experience running my own small businesses. I teach entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and small business owners like you how to organize your business, find more time, and deepen your alignment practice to experience more calm and confidence every single day. If you're looking for that intersection between practical business advice and spiritual goodness, then you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into this week's episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome to the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Corinne O'Flynn, and this is episode 6. A group of friends and I are working our way through Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, together. And for those of you who aren't aware, it's this fabulous 12-week self-exploration program or workshop, and it's wonderful. You can do it alone, or you can do it with friends. And on the cover of the book, it says that it's a spiritual path to higher creativity. And anyone who's done the program will know that it is so much more than that. And for those of you who have done the program, you'll remember that just after the first few weeks, right, when we first get into the flow of the whole program, we get confronted with this task of scheduling a week with no reading, right? Everyone in the group has a similar reaction to what the book describes as our reactions. And all of us are like, what? No reading? How can that be? No reading? But wait, my job, my work, my daily habits, but. And this program has been around longer than social media as we know it. And I'm sure that if there were an updated, revised edition of the program, it wouldn't just be a no reading week, but it would be a no social media week. It'd be an absolute cut out of input in that way. This is not to say that you can't listen to music or watch TV. She actually talks about allowing television as something that you're allowed to do during the no reading week. But going on a hiatus like this is really hard to do. And I can say that having done it before, I find it really rewarding. And I am unable to schedule my no reading / social media week for the week that it's happening in the program. I'm actually scheduling mine for a couple weeks from now when my husband's out of town. So I can really just kind of shut it down. But the fact of the going on hiatus being difficult is what I wanted to talk to you about today. So the topic of this podcast is saying yes to doing less, right? How do we get there when we're moving at the speed at which we're doing business, right? We're living our lives and we are packed to the gills. Our schedules are full from the moment we rise until the moment we go to sleep. And then for some people, their minds are spinning while they're sleeping, right? That we have so much coming in and we're producing so much. The idea of cutting something out, it's like, no, like we balk, right? But I would like to offer that, it's okay to not do it all. So I'd like you to take a moment and think about how your everyday looks. And I'm not just talking about business here, because in this case, being online and doing all the things is our life, right? Our business is part of our life. So in your business day and in your life day, what does your everyday look like? If you're like most people, it has some compilation of email, deadlines, news, text messages, DMs on social media platforms, Zoom calls, podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, courses, coaching, right? I'm not immune to any of those things. Like I don't use all of these things in equal measure, but I use all of these things, right? And I don't use all of them for work. Some of them are just for fun. But why are we doing all of those things? Are they all of equal value to your life and to your business? That's a really hard question. The business part of that question is easier to answer, right? It's easy to measure. Is this thing that I'm doing moving the needle on the bottom line? And usually If we're running a business, we can connect the dots. I have to be on social media for this, this, and this. But, as we all know, social media is designed to suck us in. So if we step a toe over the line into social media, we're going to find ourselves, well, most people, if you're like me, I find myself sucked in and I end up struggling with how to stay focused on the thing that I came here to do and then leave, right? Because those things are designed by people who are specialists in those fields and they are meant to keep us there, right? But back to the question, is this thing that I'm doing moving the needle in my business? Is it making a difference to the bottom line? And then ask that same question of your life, right? Are all of these things that I'm doing all day long adding to my life? Do they? Of course not, right? But we do them anyway. So why? I urge you to sit with that in the coming days as you take stock of all the things that you do and all the things that you give attention to. And I'm saying this to you without judgment and without casting any shade, right? I log onto Instagram and a lot of my feed is artists, painters and makers. And a lot of the people that I follow do time-lapse videos of them making something, right? And a lot of the times what they're making is amazing or it's beautiful and captivating. And that lights me up. It inspires me. It makes me smile. I'm smiling just telling you about it because I watched a cool video about something really cool today. It brings me joy, right? That and the occasional Tom Hardy posts, but I digress. So I share this prompt to ask you to ask yourself, why? What am I doing here? Is this adding? Not to make a value judgment, right? And I'm not suggesting that mindless consumption of anything is bad, right? My question is, when you put your attention on something, I want you to ask yourself, why am I here? What am I getting from this? Is this a good use of my time? And if the answer happens to be no, or if your day is shrouded in overwhelm, or if you're just looking to make a change, ask yourself, what if I really could simplify into something that's less overwhelming? Many, many people, when asked, will express a desire to ease up on all the things that are coming in, all the things that are filling the calendar and stealing our attention. But they don't know how. They don't know where to get started. And I'd offer to you the simple word, no, right? 2 letters, full sentence, no. What if we started out on this quest of simplification by just saying no to something, just one thing? What would that be like? And what would that one thing be? Does the thought of cutting something out make your throat tight? Right? I know. I felt that. But stay with me on this. What if we approached this from the other side? What if we talked about it like it was a reverse habit that we were building? We were trying to reduce. What if we had to cut something out? What if the productivity police showed up at your door tomorrow and told you that you had too much going on and you had to cut something? What would you choose? Right? Making it mandatory kind of helps us with the focus and it somehow makes the list of things snap into an order of priority, right? So let's look at it like that. Where can you cut something? And if you can't cut anything, where can you go minimalist on something? Where can you allow more space? For me, that's my calendar, like no question, bar none. And it's been that for years. And saying that I was forced to go there by the productivity police, nobody came to my door and told me that, but it really isn't a stretch because I'm still coming out of a really harrowing burnout. So I'm going to tell you a story about my tour of duty on what I lovingly refer to as the cycle of more, right? In the not too distant past, as a full-time indie author, and at this time I only had 2 pen names and now I have 3, which is kind of interesting, but I'm doing less now with 3 pen names than I was with 2. But I had my two pen names and I was on my way, and I had learned the ins and outs of self-publishing, and my writing was solid. I had a firm grasp on all the facets of book marketing. I had a groove that felt good. And after 6 years of struggling, I was finally making a steady, predictable income. I found a system that worked for me. And most importantly, I was finding readers, right? This is the goal. Then the algorithms on my main book sales platform changed. And as anyone who sells anything online knows, my choice was simple: pivot or perish, right? So of course I pivoted. And at the time, as an indie author, this meant that if I wanted to keep my books visible and in the charts and find readers, I had to release more titles with more frequency. And any authors out there, self-published authors who were publishing at that time, you know what I'm about to say, right? Because for authors at that time, more frequency meant releasing every 30 days. Every month, you guys. Monthly releases were a thing for everyone who wanted to stay on top of the charts. So we had this thing called rapid release strategies. We were managing our writing, our production, paid advertising, email newsletters, social media posting, and the special beast that is a book launch every 30 days. So to say this was a hamster wheel would be the gentlest analogy. This was more like trying to run on a treadmill made of sandpaper, which turned up in speed every few minutes while we were running in our wooden shoes. I would spend hours making spreadsheets to calculate my writing time, my words per hour, looking for ways to up production to release more books. My dream was to write months ahead and have a pipeline of books so I could finally relax, which, surprise, never happened. And then one day I hit a wall. I got run down with a bad cold and I had to stay in bed and rest. And the whole time that I was resting, all I could think about was the clock. My focus was on my frozen production schedule, that the assembly line had stopped. And it was during this time that I was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? And I had no choice really, but to take stock. And I realized that I was miserable. And despite the fact that I was doing the one thing that I really wanted to do, I was writing full time. I was making a living as an author. I was living my dream, right? But getting caught up in that cycle of more, filling my schedule to the brim with work, knocked me so far off of my why that I literally couldn't keep it up anymore. My body was run down. My brain was tired. My wrists hurt. My writing suffered. And the thing that was supposed to bring me joy and purpose, it had turned into a lifeless slog of deadlines and numbers and just burning the candle at both ends. And I asked myself, when I came to this realization, it was not a pretty day, my friends. I had to ask, how did this happen? How did I get here? And more importantly, how do I get the hell out of here? I felt so lost. And I had a meeting with myself, and I realized that I had become so caught up in chasing the algorithms, chasing my daily writing goals, chasing this accountability group that I was in, and we were all comparing our numbers, nailing my relentless launch schedule, that I forgot why I was doing this in the first place. I lost touch with my core driver, which was how much I loved writing and sharing my stories. So why do I share this with you? I share this because I think it's important that we get real. And I think it's important that we get vulnerable. And I think it's vital that we take an honest look at what we're doing and how what we're doing is making us feel and whether or not what we're doing is working. And be vulnerable with yourself, right? Being vulnerable is scary. It feels like we're so exposed, even when we're doing it in private, because it's the only way forward, right? This is why it's so important. And it's even more important when you're struggling, because vulnerability is truth. It's the path, right? It's the path to connection, to purpose, to fulfillment and joy. And it's the only path to clarity when you're overwhelmed. So back to the list of things, right? And the productivity police at your door. You have to cut something. But wait, I hear what you're thinking. If I cut something, that's admitting failure, right? And I disagree. The phrase know thyself. I think knowing thyself is always a win. But truly, quitting something when you're overwhelmed is the fastest path to winning. You give yourself permission to lose the fail mentality and choose yourself. How can that ever be? How could that ever be a fail? But it's difficult to let things go because, especially in business, we get so caught up in the things that we should be doing, the shoulds, right? We need to just throw the shoulds out the window. Um, they're just, they're toxic because it doesn't matter how many golden tickets and rocket ships that you can take to the very top of the pile and get to success and do all these things. If you're miserable and burnt out and your health is failing and you're stressed and you're just not enjoying yourself, you chose your business. We are entrepreneurs. We chose this. We should love what we do. Love what we do. Not just like it, not just tolerate it. We should love what we do. And the way that we get back into loving what we do is really getting back to why we chose to do it in the first place. So in his book, Essentialism, Greg McKeown says, only once you give yourself permission to stop trying to do it all, to stop saying yes to everyone, can you make your highest contribution toward the things that really matter. And I wanted to go further. I actually found a passage in his book that I wanted to read to you. And it says, it's in the paperback version, it's on page 132. And he says, have you ever felt a tension between what you felt was right and what someone was pressuring you to do? Have you ever felt the conflict between your internal conviction and an external action? Have you ever said yes when you meant no simply to avoid conflict or friction? Have you ever felt too scared or timid to turn down an invitation or request from a boss, colleague, friend, neighbor, or family member for fear of disappointing them? If you have, you are not alone. Navigating these moments with courage and grace is one of the most important skills to master in becoming an essentialist, and one of the hardest. And so that brings me to this other thing, this little demon that pops up when it comes time to cut things out. And that's FOMO, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. And that's the voice that says, but everybody is doing it. But if I stop, I will miss the boat. If I don't act on this right now, I will never catch up. And I want to take a moment to really sit with this because this is insidious. This is something that is happening all over social media. And especially if you're in business today, chances are you're doing business online, right? And if you're seeing the news feed that many entrepreneurs are seeing, like the one that I'm seeing, there is so much talk about how, you know, this is dead or that is dead. This is the new way. This is the only way. I have the strategy. I have the path. You must learn this new way, this new funnel, this new path to reaching your audience, or else. You guys, it's not real. It's scarcity being projected onto you. And the reason why it's projected onto you is because it works, right? We all know that it works. This is marketing and advertising in action. And none of us are immune to it. Even those of us who sell online understand what's happening, and yet we still fall prey to it because we are afraid of missing out. We're afraid of missing the boat. We're afraid of falling behind. And to that, I have one word, and that is breathe. Take a breath with me right now. And let's sit in the truth for a nice long moment. Okay, breathe in. And hear my words. You're not missing anything. You don't have to do it all. It's possible to simplify and still be successful. It's possible to cut something out and stay afloat. And most importantly, it's possible to make a mistake and choose again. Let's say you go on and take this advice to simplify. Let's say you're listening to this episode and it all resonates with you and you're like, yes, I'm going to take action on this. This is speaking to me. I'm going to cut this thing out. Whatever that one thing is, let's say you do it and you give it a few days, a few weeks, or whatever it is, and you realize, yeah, you know what, maybe I picked the wrong thing. Choose again. Bring that back in. Cut something else out. Or bring that thing back in a different way, in an easeful way, in a way that makes sense for you, in your new perspective now that you've gone without. I want to let go of that sense that it must happen now. I think that, if you've listened to any of my podcasts or if you've followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I don't subscribe to the FOMO thing. I think we need to do a whole lot more of the hermit, right? In the tarot deck, when you pull the hermit card, that's a message that you need to go within, right? It's know thyself, trust thyself. And when I see the hermit, I think the words, keep your eyes on your own paper, right? Look to yourself for counsel first. What is it that's in alignment for you? What is it that feels good for you? What is it that feels good and also is good for your business? Because there is an intersection between those things. I don't buy into the all or nothing thinking for any of it. And I also don't subscribe to the thinking that just because everyone else is doing the thing, that this is the thing that I must be doing too. I did that. I think we all do it. And hopefully you don't fall into several years long burnout as a result. But if you do, or if you're coming out of it like I am, you know what? There's hope. There's hope for everything. There's hope for all of us. The end is not nigh. A friend of mine once shared with me a piece of advice that I still tell myself daily. And I share it so often, especially with my clients, with people that I'm working with, because a lot of the times when we are trying to figure things out, we fall prey to that whole idea that the FOMO thing, like this is the path. Everyone's doing this. I have to. And the struggle is that everybody's doing this thing and I'm not doing this thing, but I'm doing 500 other things. And in order to add this thing, it's just too much. Something's got to give, right? And that's the reason why it's like we keep saying, oh, I'm going to add that on because everyone's doing that. And I'm going to add that on and everyone's doing that. I'm going to add that on because everyone's doing that. Where are we cutting the things off the backside? Because it's just not sustainable, right? So you're not missing out on anything and you don't have to do it all. And the advice that my friend shared with me that I share as much as I possibly can, and I'm going to share it with you right now, is you have an infinity of recovery available to you. I'm going to say that again. You have an infinity of recovery available to you. What does that mean? When this was shared with me, it was during a conversation after a book launch failed. I released a book, it flopped. I didn't know what I did wrong. Who knows? And you never know, right? Because we're dealing with the world here. You can't guarantee anything. And my friend said to me, you have an infinity of recovery available to you. And that felt like a shining lifeline being handed to me and pulling me out of this hole that I had put myself in through my own negative self-talk and these limiting beliefs. Because we do have an infinity of recovery available to us. We can choose again. We can pivot. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to have something that doesn't do what you expected it to do. And I'm resisting so hard saying the word failure because I don't subscribe to that. It's really not about success and failure. It's whether or not something does what you wanted it to do. And when it does not do the things that you want to do, what's next? You have to pivot. You're not going to just curl up and go home, right? We're here to do these things. So what does having an infinity of recovery available to you say to you? Hopefully it's this sense of possibility and openness and expansion and release from this grip that we have on how things are supposed to go, right? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I wanted to talk about simplifying in ways that were in alignment with who we are and how we work, but also the act of simplifying requires cutting of something or reducing of something. And if that turns out to be the wrong thing to simplify or the wrong thing to cut, choose again. Pick something else. And that, my friends, is the truth. Thanks. Have a great week. This is Corinne, signing off. Remember, part of being a calm entrepreneur is developing the systems, habits, and know-how that lets you know that you are the one in the driver's seat. You get to choose how you run your business, and you get to choose how you work. So you got this. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Calm Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Corinne O'Flynn, and if this episode was valuable to you, please head on over and rate and review wherever you consume your podcasts. Please subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. New episodes go out each week on Tuesdays, and I look forward to hanging with you again. This is Corinne, signing off. Have an excellent day.